A chef needs to practice or brush up on things. I do it all the time. One big area that I think we all share in common is seafood and fish in general. First and foremost, some of the sort of simpler creatures of the sea, like mussels, such a great thing, clams and mussels, right? They're water filters, they taste like the ocean when you eat them. If they're opening up like this, it actually means they're no longer alive. You also have what's called a beard, and you can see this. These beards actually are what anchor the mussels to the rock. Some people consider these beards a delicacy and eat them. I'm gonna say that we want to avoid them. I just take the side of a paring knife that's not sharp, and with my thumb and the paring knife, I just literally pull the beard right off. Give them a wash. You want to make sure they're completely free of sand and any dirt on the exterior. And we're ready to cook them. We just steam them open. You know, it's like a pop-up thermometer on the Thanksgiving turkey. They open, you take them out. And I'll stand over the pot of mussels and pick them out as they open up. So they're still tender and super juicy. Delicious, great for the ocean, get in there. Little more complex creature. You know, my complicated friend, the oyster, right? Now you can just pop these on the grill, washed as is, and they pop open and you can eat them right off the grill. They're delicious. If you want them raw and shucked, that's another story. Lots of equipment for an oyster. So we have some fancy pants gloves you can wear, or you can just make a sandwich with the oyster and a nice thick kitchen towel. So when you get the oysters home, you literally just want to scrub them with a brush under cold running water. Same as the mussels. The oysters should be closed. They should feel heavy in your hand because they're filled with liquid and a delicious little creature inside. So if they feel light or dry, not a great sign. And you have that little opening right here. This is where we want to get in the door, right where this hinge is. So you'll see, I'm organizing this so that I can get right in the door and I'm aiming down at the cutting board. And then we put the tip of the knife inside and just twist. You're gonna hear a little pop. You just wanna go with the knife like you're turning the key in the door. Now, I'm in the building, right? But my knife now has all that shell and residue from touching the outside, so wipe your knife clean so that when you go inside, you don't put all of that dirt and whatever else on the outside of the shell inside your oyster. Big pro tip there. Go in. Now I'm gonna move the towel so you can really see. You see how it's like twisting a key in a lock. Just kind of going up. There's only one place right here where the oyster is actually anchored to the top shell, so that's all we care about. So we're gonna go in and literally scrape. See, there's only one place where it's anchored, and then look at that. Now, if you're at home and you're shucking oysters, you can shuck these in advance like this, and because the oyster is still attached to the bottom shell, it's still alive. So it can hang here for a number of hours on ice in your fridge and be tip-top. But to eat them, we don't want it anchored to the bottom shell, because then people are trying to slurp the oyster and the oyster's like, hey, I'm not ready to leave the house. So get underneath and just scrape it clean of that bottom anchor and put it back. Now the oyster will just slide right in your mouth. Here's another tip. You want to actually pour that first bit of liquor off. The oyster will naturally refill its shell with a second liquor that is sweeter. So pour that little bit off and let it hang. Another Iron Chef insider secret. Squid. You can buy it frozen in the freezer section and never deal with it. Or if you do buy it fresh, it's not that hard to deal with. It just looks really intimidating. So squid is called a cephalopod. Cephalo means head and pod means foot. So we've got the head and the foot attached. So we just pull it apart. And as you pull it out, squid doesn't have any bones, but it has a piece of cartilage inside that acts like a skeleton. And so we gotta get that out. Kind of beautiful. Not edible, but beautiful. All right, we've got all this ink and whatever else. It washes off easily. You've got kind of two flaps here. Can you see those? They're almost like little wings. You're literally peeling it like you peel an orange, only much, much more easily. Look at that. And it literally comes right off. And by the way, don't worry about it if there's a little ink or whatever left on the outside, it's delicious. We're gonna cut right below the eyes. And now this little piece where the eyes and the actual mouth are is where the ink sac is. So this piece is the only piece we don't use. Now you can wash these clean. I always trim off that little bottom piece and then we cut it into the rings. Now this is only one of many, many ways we can deal with the squid, but this is what you get in a fried squid platter. The rings and the tentacles. You can also open up the top of the squid, clean out that center a little bit, just scraping. Now you can cross-hatch this, just like that, a little X on the side, you wanna look really pro. This tenderizes it a little bit as you cook it, and then you can pop these on the grill. As is, you can braise them. You can cut them super thin and just fold the squid ever so gently into a pasta dish at the last couple of minutes. Squid is something you either wanna cook for 2 to 5 minutes or 2 to 5 hours. There's no middle ground. Moving on to shrimp, I get so many questions about shrimp. Look, you can go to the freezer section of your supermarket and get a bag of peeled and deveined shrimp and be perfectly fine. You also see the shrimp like this, head on, everything on, right? You kind of wonder about it. They're delicious if you pop the shrimp on the grill or in a saute pan and you cook it, and you can get that wonderful flavor from the heads. Or not, if you're not into it. I just separate the tail from the head, and you can go into this any number of ways. I kind of like just a scissor, right up the back. Just follow the seam of the shrimp. It has a natural seam, and you can literally then open it up and take that shell right off. Now, you see I opened up the back with the scissor, and there you can just take my favorite utensil of all, thumb plus paring knife, grab the top piece of that vein running down the back, which we know is the intestinal tract, and I don't think I need to say much more, and just literally pull that whole intestinal tract right off. A bigger, sort of more intimidating version of a shrimp is a lobster. This is a whole cooked lobster. You can't shell a lobster raw. You'll notice you never have shelled raw lobster. It's liquid, and it's only when you cook the lobster and the protein of the body coagulates and firms up that we can actually shell it, which is why you don't get, lobster, ceviche, carpaccio, crudo. How do we deal with this? It's pretty intimidating, right? It's like dismantling a creature. So, twist, off the claws first. Detach the tail from the head, much like we did with the shrimp earlier. Now, you have inside here, for the heads, you can make a great soup. You can do so much, and I'm gonna cut down on the inside of the head so you can kind of see inside with me. Just straight down the middle, we have what's called the tamale. T-O-M-A-L-L-E-Y. Sort of like the internal workings of the lobster. You can scramble that into eggs. Some cultures consider that an extreme delicacy. There's also some really good meatiness. So you can split these, either clean out the tamale or leave it, sear them, and make a delicious lobster sauce, stock, soup. This is definitely a big part of the lobster's value. You can also rinse them out and stuff them and broil them, or you can put them out, shell your lobsters and put them out on a platter, very fancy. First things first, the tail, super easy. What I do is I literally lay the tail, the cooked tail, on its side, and I push gently down until I hear that sound. Then I come up here, and I literally crack it open. You can also, if it's easier, make a little cut in here, just to get in the building more easily, up to you. And just start to peel off that shell. Once you get a little bit of it off the top, you can grab onto that meat and literally wiggle the tail right out. Same as the shrimp, just a little bit bigger and firmer. One little thing, again, every animal has an intestinal tract. Right here at the base of the tail, you can make a little cut and just open and pull that right out. So you can serve this whole, or you can cut it straight down the middle and have two beautiful halves, which you often see in like shellfish platters and stuff like that. You see the tail kind of curled up like that. Now we have the claws and the knuckles. Hard to shell, but not really. I'm gonna take the claw and put it up against the board like this to create the tension, so I can just use the board and the leverage to break those knuckles off. The claws themselves, you just pull this guy. It's gonna be a little liquid if you steam it. Pull it almost all the way back, and then come back and just twist it off. Make sure your board is clear of any moisture. The non-sharp, the heel of the knife for this, I just tap, and then just lay it flat, and just tap gently on either side. Piece of cake. More shells that can go in your soup. Now the knuckle meat. There's no shortcut for the knuckle meat. You've got to just cut up either side with a scissor. Turn it around, get in there, and then you can peel the shell away. I had a job where I shelled 50 lobsters every morning. That's what I would do, come in and shell. I worked that job for 2 years. I worked an average of 6 days a week. You do the math.